In this video, I will share 10 Google Chrome extensions for Google Tag Manager users. They are listed in no particular order. Let's take a look. The first extension is Tag Assistant Companion. It mainly serves two purposes. The first one is to add some additional functionality, or in other words, enhance the preview mode of Google Tag Manager. And the other one is to help you troubleshoot tags related to Google, for example, Google tags. First of all, if you try at some point to enable the preview mode of Google Tag Manager, then the website by default is opened in a new window. But if you install the Tag Assistant Companion, the websites in preview mode will be opened in the same browser window, but just in a different tab. Personally, I like troubleshooting websites in tabs more. So for me, this particular feature is quite convenient. Also, as I've said, you can use this extension to troubleshoot Google's tags. For example, here I have enabled the preview mode. In this container, I have Google Analytics tags, several of them actually. So now if I go to the website, then click Tag Assistant, this will show me what kind of Google tags were found. Also, I see that Google Tag Manager was spotted. If I click on the Google tag, I can see what kind of events were fired. Right now, only page view was fired. I can click here and see what kind of information was sent to Google Analytics. Even though technically you can see the same thing in the preview mode of Google Tag Manager if you switch to the measurement ID of your Google Analytics property. But this is just an additional way for you to see what kind of information is sent while you are browsing the website. So this is a quite helpful sidebar. The next extension is Analytics Debugger. Once you install this extension, then you will see an icon right here, but it will be disabled. However, don't worry because Analytics Debugger operates in the browser's developer tools. So once you open your website, let's say you have enabled Google Tag Manager's preview mode, then you can open developer tools. So if you're on Windows, you can just press F12, or you can go to three dots, then more tools and developer tools. And here you will see a new tab, which is called Analytics Debugger. If you click it, then you can press Start Debugging, and it will begin showing some information of what is happening on a page. So by default, it shows the data layer, what kind of information was pushed, and so on. However, the cool thing about Analytics Debugger is that it actually supports multiple analytics and marketing pixel vendors. If you want to see, for example, what kind of requests were sent to Google Analytics, you can click plus right here to add vendors, and you can select up to 5 of them. So by default, we are looking just at GTM and GTag, which is basically sort of like data layer troubleshooting. But if you want to also see what kind of requests were sent to Google Analytics, you can click Enable next to GA4. If you have, let's say, Facebook Pixel, you can then select Marketing Pixels and then click Apply. The changes will be applied, and after several seconds, the extension will be reloaded, and you will need to click Start Debugging again. Now we will have different tabs for each vendor. So the first one is for the data layer. Then if you have GA4 requests sent, then you can click here. And right now I've sent only the page view event. And here on the right side, I can see various information that was sent together with the requests to Google Analytics. And then you can also see what those parameters mean. If of course they are publicly known, what do they mean? Then if I make a purchase, so let me quickly do that. I will go to my test page, then make a test purchase right here. So I will just click purchase. Then if I go to GA4, I will see the purchase event. I can click it. And then here, I again see what kind of information was sent, but I also see what kind of products were included in this purchase event. And they're displayed in this quite convenient list. So I see the item name, also ID, quantity, and item price. So if you're working with various vendors, you're troubleshooting various analytics tools and marketing pixels, then consider using Analytics Debugger, because instead of having separate extensions for each vendor, you could have just one, which can handle many of them. The next extension is Stape GTM Helper. After you install this extension, it will help you in two ways. The first way is that if you go to the website that you're working on and you want to check the quality of your setup, then you can click on the Stape GTM Helper extension and then run a scan of your website. Once you click here, then you will be redirected to their scanner, and then it will run against various checks. You will have to enter your email address, and then eventually you will get an email informing you about a completed scan and what kind of problems were found and some suggestions on how to improve those things. So if I enter my email right now, and click Get the report. I should eventually get it. And an example of the report could look something like this, where you get a score. That score is also detailed in several different groups. If you scroll down, then you will see what kind of trackers were detected. Then you can continue scrolling and to learn even more information. And finally, you also get some recommended actions. And the second way how the extension can help you is the enhancement of the server-side container preview mode. So here, if I go to the server-side container and I already have installed that plugin, then let's see how the extension enhances the preview mode. So now I will just quickly reload the page so that some request is sent to my server-side container. I'll hit the refresh button, then go to the preview mode of Google Tag Manager. So first of all, there are some colors and icons that help you distinguish between different tags better. You can also filter tags. For example, just look at a particular tag. This is helpful if you have, let's say, tens or hundreds of tags in the container. Then if you go to any tag, for example, GA4 tag, and you click on the outgoing request, then that request will be displayed in a readable way. Because right now, the default out-of-the-box server-side preview mode just displays a request as a plain text, and it's very difficult to find certain parameters, unless, of course, you use the browser search feature. But this is a very handy improvement, because if you want, you can also switch to JSON and view the parameters like this. You can also view them as a table. If you want, you can copy the entire payload and then paste it somewhere else. For example, maybe you're working with Postman. So even though you might think that these improvements are quite minor, they actually help a lot, because just the readability of the data that you send further to analytics platforms or advertising platforms, it just makes your troubleshooting process much faster and smoother. And if you have some suggestions, you can also request a feature by clicking here.
By the way, I release Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager tutorials every week. If you want consistent flow of fresh knowledge and to stay up to date, then subscribe to this channel. It will help us a lot.
The next extension is GTM Fixer. After you install it, it will add various quality of life improvements to the interface of Google Tag Manager and Google Tag Manager's preview mode. For example, in the web container, you can search for particular events. For example, if you just care about DOM-ready events, and then maybe you have, like tens of them because you were browsing multiple pages, then you can click here and then you will see just those events. The same applies to tags. If you're looking just for a particular tag, then you can enter that tag's name right here. Then in the interface of Google Tag Manager, it will add a convenient copy container ID icon right here. If you are annoyed by the container quality widget right here, because sometimes, or actually quite often, it gives you false positives about maybe some pages not being tagged even though they are, or maybe those pages should not be tagged at all. So if you want to hide this one, then you can do that as well. Then another useful feature that I really like is in the container submission section. So if you click submit here, you can then click this button, give access to your Google Analytics 4 property. And when you submit this container version, the annotation in Google Analytics 4 about this version will be added automatically. So it kind of saves you a bunch of clicks and you can then spend your time somewhere else. And there are actually more things that this extension can do. So if you want to learn more, then go to their Chrome Web Store profile, and then you can learn more things right here. Also, the same creators of this extension have another extension for Google Analytics 4, which is called GA4 Fixer. So if you want to give that a try, you can also go to the extension and click this link right here, and you will be redirected to a GA Fixer profile where you can learn more about that. The next extension is EC Assist, or also known as Enhanced Conversions Assist. This extension is designed specifically for those who are tracking conversions with Google Ads, and they track them as enhanced conversions, which means that together with conversions, they also send user information, such as email address, first name, and so on. So once you have installed this extension, and of course, obviously, you should have a Google Ads conversion tag. In my case, I have a purchase tag. So now if I enable the preview mode, then I go to the website, make a purchase to track that conversion. So I'll do that here. Then if I click on EC Assist and click Get Started, then I can either enter the URL of the page or I can just click this icon and it will take the current page's URL. I click Start Monitoring. It will reload the page. And here I see that the conversion was sent and user data was found. I can click it and I see the hashed value of the email. and I see that this extension shows no errors, so everything is working fine. I'm not sending any phone number, therefore this warning right here reminds me that if I had this data, maybe I could send it as well. So this particular extension is just for one purpose, but if you work a lot with enhanced conversions, then it might help you save a couple of minutes here and there. Next, let's move to not a single extension, but actually to a bunch of extensions, because all of them serve the same purpose. They're just related to different vendors, and I'm talking about pixel helpers. I'm talking about things like Meta Pixel Helper or Snap Pixel Helper or UET Tag Helper, which is needed for Microsoft advertising. Needed to troubleshoot that. So if you are sending data, conversions to some ad networks like Facebook or Snapchat, then you might want to install their extensions because they are designed specifically to troubleshoot those particular requests. For example, if you're sending some events and conversions to Facebook, then you might want to use Meta Pixel Helper. All of those extensions work fairly similarly. So if you go to your website, then you go to your installed extensions and then you click on that particular extension. For example, here I have installed Meta Pixel. So if I click here, I can see that one pixel was found. And if I click right here, I can see what kind of event was sent. I can click on that event and see the information that was sent together. If you have installed Snapchat Pixel, then you would need to repeat the same process, just select a different extension. You can go here, then click Snap Pixel Helper. And right now I don't have the Snapchat installed on the site, but if I had, I would also see a list of tracked events. I could click on them, see what kind of information was sent. And even though technically you could achieve the same thing by using browser's developer tools, some users might find them a bit too technical. So if you're looking for a simpler way to quickly find and check the information that was sent from your website to those ad vendors, then you can use these extensions. By the way, did you know that I have a bunch of free ebooks on Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics? So if you want to better learn these topics, then click the link below the video, download those ebooks, and get started. The next extension is Redirect Path. This is especially useful for those who work often with cross-domain tracking. After you install this extension, you will be able to find it right here. And if some redirect happens on a page, then it will show you some information about it. Here I am on my website. And let's say that on this website, I click a link that redirects to my other website. And I want to track both websites with cross-domain tracking in Google Analytics 4. If I click a button that redirects the visitor from this website to another website, that other website's URL would be automatically decorated with the GL parameter. Of course, its value would be very long, but this is necessary. So if on the next page I have this in the URL and Google Analytics loads, it will then understand that this is the same session, the same user, and then attribution will work properly. But let's see what happens in this case. I go there, the URL parameter disappears, and then I am moved to this particular page. Now, if I go to the redirect path, I already see that it found something. I can click here and I see the journey of how the redirect happened. I see this was the initial URL, but then a 302 redirect happened, and then eventually I landed right here. So if this happens, then my cross-domain tracking would not work. In this case, I would have to cooperate with developers and tell them that they have to preserve the query parameters or URL parameters in the web address, and that should also be visible in this page right here. If you have some JavaScript redirects, the extension can also catch that as well. So this is very useful to understand whether some parameters are lost because of redirects. If there are like 5 redirects happening one after another, you would see that entire chain right here. The next extension in line is Adswerve Data Layer Inspector. Once you install it, you can use it as a Swiss Army knife that has a lot of various features. So for example, here, if I go to the website, I can click on the extensions, then Adswerve Data Layer Inspector, then I can click Inspect, and it will unlock a lot of various features that I can use. For example, if you're troubleshooting something and you want to constantly keep pushing certain data layer information, maybe for troubleshooting, for example, you're testing enhanced conversions, so you could just always keep pushing the email address, then you could enable this checkbox, click Save Settings and Reload. And once the page is reloaded and you go to the console, for example, you will see that on this particular page, the email is always pushed. Another useful feature is the inject code option. For example, on this website right now, I have disabled Google Tag Manager, so GTM is not installed here. But what if I want to already start working on the container, but the developer who will be able to install my container just comes back after vacation next week? So I am kind of blocked right now. But if I want to temporarily inject the container, and I mean my container, within the boundaries of my browser, I could do that. So if I go to Google Tag Manager website container, I click on the ID, I copy the container code excluding the script tags. So I just copy it. Then I go to the website. I will go here, add functionality. Well, I will disable that push, then inject code, then paste the Google Tag Manager container snippet and click Save Settings and Reload. Then if I reload the page, open the developer console, and then type data layer, I will see some events coming from Google Tag Manager. Also, since I had the preview mode already enabled, you can see that the Tag Assistant connected automatically because now this container is installed. But again, keep in mind that this is happening within the boundaries of your browser. For all other visitors, the container is not installed. But since I have the GTM container installed right here, I can continue working on the setup. And then when the developer comes back after vacation, installs the container, all of my changes will go live immediately. And there are many other features that are available right here. So if you want to learn more, take a look at their Chrome Web Store profile. You can also learn more about the extension by going to their blog post. So this extension is definitely worth giving a shot. The next extension is called Google Analytics Debugger. If at some point you have worked with Google Analytics 4, you should be familiar with the debug view, where you can see your incoming events and check what kind of information was sent together with those events. The thing about debug view is that it shows only those events when the Google Analytics debug mode is enabled. When you're working with Google Tag Manager preview mode, it automatically enables the GA4 debug mode. But what if you have Google Analytics installed on a website, maybe by a developer, and Google Tag Manager is not used there? So in that case, if you want to still see your particular events coming in from the website, you can install the Google Analytics Debugger. Then when that is done, you should click on its icon right here. So then it becomes enabled and you can see this on badge. And then if you go to your website and click refresh, it will send new requests to Google Analytics with the GA debug mode enabled, and then you should eventually start seeing your events right here. Yes, I understand that this extension is just pretty much for a single use case, and it's not as rich as previous extensions, but maybe some of you will find this useful. And the final extension in this video is Data Layer Checker Plus. Once you install this extension, it will become available right here. And if you go to your website where you're troubleshooting Google Tag Manager setup and you click on that extension, you will see what is happening in the data layer. This is somewhat similar to what we had, for example, in the Analytics Debugger extension. But there's one feature which is quite awesome, and that is Shopify Custom Pixel Data Layer Checker. Now, the thing with Shopify is that it has certain limitations that make the troubleshooting process more difficult. But if you want to still see the data layer events somewhere in the extension, for example, somewhere right here, then you can click this checkbox and you will start seeing those events right there. Also, they have a GTM injector option, which works similarly compared to the Adswerve's data layer inspector. But the main reason why I included this extension in the list is because of the Shopify checker. And that's the end of this video. I'm not saying that you must install all of these extensions. Try one, then try another, and see which one fits your workflow best. If after 1 month you'll start using one of these extensions in your work, then my job here is done. If you found this video useful, hit the like button. That will help me understand what videos do you like and what should I create in the future. Also, if you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics, then subscribe to this channel. My name is Julius, this is Analytics Mania, and I'll see you in the next video.